So returning to Microsoft Word, we're going to look at some of these other tabs, which is the design and layout tab, right? So if you go to the design tab, what you can see almost immediately is that a large amount of space on the tab is actually taken up by these design elements, all of these different things that you can see here, right? So what is this? This is actually pertaining to the themes, which is, as you can see here, I don't know if you noticed or not, but it's very much reminiscent or reminding us of Microsoft PowerPoint, right? So if you have opened PowerPoint before, you will notice that it's fairly similar. It gives you the hint of that slide feel. And what are these really? This is when you want to apply some sort of themes for your document, meaning if not, you go with the default, and my default here, as you can see, is Calibri body 10, right? But when you apply these themes, it will be slightly different. Let's say, for example, I go with Wisp, right? And I'll just go with some random text here, right? So as you can see, this looks fairly different, right, from the regular Calibri body tags. So we're just gonna go and check it out. It is Century Gothic 10, right? So it looks different and so on and so forth. So just a bit of reminder, this is a bit of a trivia. If you use a different font, sometimes you use less ink when printing, but we might as well go paperless. That works too, right? Anyhow, these are further customization that you can do. As you can see, I'm not sure whether you can see, just focus on the text in the background here as we try and click on these different options one by one, right? So you see there's slight changes here and there, right? And this will pertain to other things as well. For example, if you have heading, for example, heading 1 and heading 2, right? So it will adhere to the governance of these themes. For example, this one, as you can see, it looks like that. The heading 1 looks like that. So I'm just going to go to home and apply heading 1 and heading 2 here, right? So it looks slightly different, right? Of course, if you want to, you can also change the colors, color theme and so on and so forth. Maybe you're doing a document for an organization which has a certain thematic color, right? And Word makes it easy for you to do those things, right? So other than that, there's further customization that can be had. And as you can see here, this design tab is really made for design in mind, meaning to say there's a lot of these things that in which you can actually look at the home tab and you can edit it. For example, paragraph spacing here is given in a sense of a very visual kind of sense, compact, tight, open, relaxed, double, and so on. Whereas if you go to the home tab, this is from the original Microsoft Word. We also have spacing here, but numbers are given, right? So we have colors, you can change font if you want, right? There is of course a default according to the theme that you chose. So there's paragraph spacing, there's effects if you want to play around with that. Then last but not least is set as default. Right, so this is when you set as default, that would mean that the next document, when you open Word again for document 2, document 3, and so on, you will actually get this as default, this kind of setting as default. So just gonna insert a blank page here, right, and then go back to design. And what is the watermark? Basically, whenever you're creating a document, you might want it to be something like a confidential document, or you might want to customize it in such a way that this is my document, that kind of thing. So watermark is this washed out text that you will see within your page, right? So you can make it diagonal, horizontal. I guess you can also make it vertical, but it's less common. So mostly people do it diagonal or horizontal because then people can read it easily, right? It can be confidential. You can go with custom watermark. And that custom watermark can be even a picture watermark. So for example, you can have a company logo, right? You can have a text watermark that you can write anything at all, for example, anything, right? So and then of course there's further customization with regards to the font type, size, and even color, right? You want to make it semi-transparent and whatnot, right? So you have something like that. So it appears that way, anything, right? And whatever you type on the page won't mess up with this watermark, because it's just a watermark, meaning it's something on the page that does not interfere with other elements that you'll have. For example, let's put a random text here. Right, so as you can see, the watermark is just behind. It looks washed out to give it a feeling of, you know, it's not something that you should trouble yourself too much with. It's just something in the background, right? Next we have page color, and it's very simple. Basically you can just choose any color, and due to the fact that the font color is automatic, right? Usually it's automatic, it's set as automatic. When you apply a page color, there will be changes, automatic changes to the font in such a way that it will still be legible. You will still be able to read it, right? Next up is page borders. So what Word does, and actually what a lot of apps do as well, is they put things which a lot of people like to use. They put it in several parts. For example, you can see here we have things such as reuse files on the home tab. If you go to the insert tab, we get reuse files again. So it's something like that, right? So same goes here. We have page border. At the same time, if you create a table, and this is a bit strange, right? If you create a table and then you right click and then you choose table properties, right? So you see borders and shading. You click on that, you will get this kind of menu, right? Which is arguably similar to what you will have if you use the page border. If you click on the page border, you get the same menu. So I suppose there's a development team working on this. They work on this menu, what it does, and so on and so forth. And this menu can be applied on many different things. I'll show you what I mean. This is page border, right? So I can, for example, choose something like this, right? And then OK it, right? And then OK it here. And I get a page border. That's from the table menu just now. Right? But I can also do it from the page border here, right? But because it's something that is deemed to be useful or interesting or often used by people who use Microsoft Word, so the option is made available again here and easily accessible. So that is the design tab. Not a lot here, right? What we do have a lot of would be in the layout tab. I'm gonna head on over to the layout tab, and on the layout tab you will see three sections: page setup, paragraph, and arrange. Arrange is a bit washed out. We'll get to that later, but first we're going to focus on the paragraph section of the layout tab. And you will notice that these look somewhat similar, you know, indent and spacing and so on and so forth. It's because it is, and it's something that is available over on the home tab. You will see indentation, you will see a paragraph here. There's a paragraph section here as well, and if you click on this, you will get this options that looks something like this, which allows us to control the paragraph, right? And this is something similar to what we have on the layout tab, like exactly similar. It's just that here is a bit of a shortcut. You can immediately manipulate it here. When you click on this, you get the same menu, right? So there is indentation for left and right spacing, and then spacing for vertical spacing, meaning spacing between the paragraphs, right? And we'll see spacing before and after. What does that mean? Basically, when you're on a particular paragraph, let's say I'm on this paragraph, reading is easier. You know what? Let's mark this paragraph, yeah. So when I'm on these paragraphs, because both are standard, before and after is 5 and 10. What does that mean? Basically, let's say for paragraph A, the spacing before the paragraph is 5, after the paragraph is 10. But by default, something larger will take place. For example, for paragraph A and B, paragraph B says I want spacing before me to be 5 point. Let's just imagine it as being 5 units. But paragraph A says after me, I want a spacing of 10 points. So 10 here will actually be the default. We can, the higher the number, that will be the default. Let's say we go to paragraph B here and we increase 5 to 15, right? So increase 5 to 15 and I press enter. As you can see, there's a slight changing there, meaning there's a slight change in the spacing. Whereas if I go back to paragraph A, here I'm in paragraph A, right? Now I'm going to change this 10 to 20. right? So the higher it is, again you can see there's an increase in spacing just now, right? So the higher number will actually be the default that will be taken. Here we say after me I want a space of 20. B says before me I want a space of 15, so you can say 20 wins lah, right? Then we have the left and right indentation as actually spacing as well. You can change it using the ruler, or you can change it using this as well. As you can see, in terms of the measurement, this uses centimeter, this uses point, and 1 point is 1/72 of an inch, right? But you can change these units if you want to, right? Here I can change it to centimeters, you know, if you're comfortable with that. Let's say before me I want a space of 1 inch, so you can use 1 inch actually, right? So as you can see, this is what Word sees as 1 inch lah. So you can change it to 1 inch, and 1 inch is 72 point, right? Which means that 1 point is 1/72 of an inch. So we're moving on to the page setup section of the layout, right? And we are going to go this way. We're going to go margins and then orientation and size, which I think are fairly commonsensical stuff. It's quite intuitive, right? Then we'll go to hyphenation and line numbers, which are quite arguably quite intuitive as well. Then we go to we go to breaks and then columns, which I think are related to each other and slightly more advanced concepts, so to speak, right? But before we actually look at that, we're gonna get rid of this page border, right? So just go to design, add a page break, right? So here we are, and we can change the margin, which is fairly intuitive. It's quite commonsensical. So basically the margin just tells you how much space you have on the margins. For example, a normal one would be 2.54 on each side, top, bottom, left and right. Narrow will be 1.27. So this is normal, 1 inch or 2.54 centimeters, right? Narrow is half an inch for each side. If I click on this, as you can see, there's a slight change in the ruler, which makes my margin smaller. Or I can just go with custom margins. You can even go with 0 and 0, you know. So what will complain something like this is because this is not printable in lots of printers. I mean, not a lot of printers can actually print borderless stuff, but we can just ignore it, right? And here I have a full document, which is from top to bottom. We'll go back to layout and orientation. You can change landscape or portrait, and for this I'm just going to zoom out so that we'll be able to see. Again, portrait and landscape is fairly simple to understand. This is portrait orientation. We change to landscape, basically it becomes landscape like that. As well, you can change the size of your document. Standard is A4. We have letter, which is I think more popular. I'm not sure. I think it's Europe or US or something. A4 is all these A's are something that originated from Japan. What I'm saying is a Japanese system. So that is sizing, and we can move on to hyphenation and so on. But I'm just going to change it to portrait first. Okay, so we have this, and what is hyphenation really? It's really simple. Hyphenation is basically this, you know, if you have, for example, you write something which is too long and it has to go to the next line, it will automatically put a hyphen. This thing, so the default is none. You can set it as automatic or manual, right? In which case, when you have a very long word that has to go to the next line, for example, you put a hyphen. Right. Next is line numbers, which again can be something that is valuable. It's somewhat similar to the paragraph thing, this paragraph tool that we have on the home tab. It's just that for line numbers, we have it's just on lines, right? So we can put a line number, continuous, right? So here, as we can see, it will just number the lines that we have something. By something, I mean, let's say for example, we put an enter. So here we press enter, so this is considered a line. Here there's no number because we put a page break, right? Here, as you can see, these are all lines. So we can know, for example, between 22 and 23 is just an empty space because we actually set the spacing, and it's not enter lah. So if you press enter instead, it will actually come out, all those numbers will come out, which means that there's a line that right? Line ready to be edited, and so on and so forth, right? Which brings us to the breaks and columns. So what's the meaning of breaks and column? I'm just gonna open a new one, right? So what happens with headers and footers is it's standardized regardless of however many pages we do, right? For example, I'm just gonna put a header here. Before that, let's add a few pages. Let's add a few pages. So now we have 3 pages, right? We have 3 pages here, right? And we're just gonna add a random header here, random header, right? And this random header will appear on all of our pages, page 1, 2, and 3. But we can, if you want to, we can actually have different headers on different pages. In fact, we can actually have pages which are different from each other in terms of landscape and portrait mode. So now we have header and footer and header just like that. And I'm just gonna add one page here using this break, which is next page, right? So here, once I've added that using, it's not a page break, it's next page break, right? And now I'm gonna go back to my header footer. As you can see, there's 2 sections now, section 1 and section 2, right? Otherwise, you can also go to view and see the outline, and you'll be able to see here there's a next page break, which is marked, meaning to say that now you have different sections, right? And I am going to add another page here. So this is section 2, this is also section 2. If I add another here, right? So I'm just gonna add another next page break here, right? What happens then would be I will have 3 sections now, right? So this is section 3, this is section 2, and this is also section, this is section 1, this is section 2, and this is section 3, right? So I'm just gonna put some text here just to indicate which is which, right? So this is section 2, and let's make that super large like that, right? This is section 2, right? And this is section 3. So section 3 is there's nothing on section 3, there's nothing on section 1, only something on section 2. We're gonna zoom out right now, right? So as you can see, all pages are here, and we can see that all pages are in portrait mode. I'm just gonna go to section 2 now, right? Section 2 is activated. Now I'm gonna go to layout and change it to landscape. It is the only one that actually changes to landscape because they are in different sections. That's one thing. Another is I can also do something like this, right? I click on this header section. I can click on, as you can see, header and footer tab is activated now. I can go there and I can see this link to previous is activated. If I deactivate this, meaning I click on it until it becomes like that, it's deactivated now. I can now choose a different kind of header, right? So now I put header for section 2 here. If I go to section 1, section 1 still remains a random header, right? But if I go to section 3, section 3 becomes header for section 2 as well, because the default is link to previous. If I click here, as you can see, link to previous is activated. I can deactivate it and change it THREE, for example, right? Now I have a different header for different section, right? Because I've unlinked it. Right? So this can be very useful. For example, maybe you're doing your thesis or something, your final year project, and this, for example, this is chapter 1. Right? And chapter 1 consists of maybe 10 pages, so page 11 and onwards is chapter 2, so you have something like that, right? Which is another 10 pages. So we're gonna do a column. It's just that when we do a column, right? So I'm just gonna, let's say I have some random text here. Right? So let's say, for example, I want these to be in several columns. So columns is fairly commonsensical as well. Basically, you just want to arrange your text into several parts. And let's say I want only this part to be in 2 columns. So what do? I just click and then 2 columns. So in this particular case, you can actually break your paragraphs, your page into several sections, and that is called the continuous break. So continuous break here and then continuous break there will indicate that this is a different part of this page, meaning this is, this is something different. I did a break, continuous break, and then I can just freely do this. Finally, we'll be looking at the range section of the layout tab, and as you can see here, the range section is not activated until we have some form of element within our document that can activate it, meaning to say that it's like one of those tabs that is only available when we activate an element such as a table or a picture, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert a picture, or let's insert an icon. Okay, insert an icon, which is technically speaking a type of picture. So let's put an icon of an acorn. So we have this here, and once we have that here, right, so we'll look at the layout tab. We have that here, and then once we click on this, then we will have some of these being activated, right? So we can, for example, so these are just some activation tools, so to speak, which make your graphic behave slightly differently, right? And I can't say I am well versed as to I know exactly what this means, what that means. Usually in my case, basically what I do is I actually do a trial and error. So does this work? Does this achieve what I want to achieve? That kind of thing. So I can't really give a proper review as to what this means, what that means, and so on and so forth. We can actually activate these things. This position, where you want to put it. Like I said, I can't really say I'm totally well versed in such a way that I know what will happen. So I would like you to have the same kind of outlook on using Microsoft Word, meaning to say that you should try and do things, try things, and see which ones work for you, right? But yeah, you can these are quite commonsensical. It's just rotate and then flip. You can group a few things together. So basically I click on one object and then press either Control or Shift. Both are workable, so I just do it like this, go to layout, and then I can group them together, right? Or I can also right click and choose group, right? So all best, and give it a try and then do your exercises.